None of them were actually Nazis. That was slander against the vampires.
This podcast is not suitable for children or those who are easily disturbed. Spoiler warning for whatever is in the title of this episode.
And now for the obligatory socials. Please like, share and subscribe. You can find the podcast on Twitter at HorrorPod69. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Slasher and Goodreads. Become part of the Disturbed community by asking for the Facebook group and Discord links. Send dick pics to the Horror of Babylon podcast at gmail.com. Support the show at patreon.com/the Horror of Babylon. In closing, you can let your friends know that the Horror of Babylon is available on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible and all other major podcast apps.
Welcome to episode 84 of the Horror of Babylon, where we return to Salem's Lot in a return to Salem's Lot. I am Ryan, and with me as always is Daniel. Say hi, Daniel.
Hi, Daniel.
And thank you to our patrons, Abigail the First, Breaker of Chains, Mother of Dragons, and
Logan,
the Full Metal Patron. And thank you to Horsemen Comics and Gaming, which you can visit at the Morgantown Mall in Morgantown, West Virginia, or the Mall at Robertson in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And if you need to speech with Judge Ron, he lives in the big white house at the end of Main Street. But just go after like 8 p.m. because he's only up when it's dark. Trigger warnings. For me, I wrote down total schlock.
It's a schlocky movie.
If you can't handle schlock, you can't handle this movie.
It doesn't quite reach exploitation levels, but it gets close.
And then lobstrosities. You're
gonna have to explain that word.
So, lobstrosities are monsters in the Dark Tower series. They're kind of like, I would say they're kind of like the slime, like, type boss, or not boss, like enemies, like they're like really common monster.
Okay, so they're like worth 1 XP.
Yeah, but they're basically like giant lobsters, and if you like fall asleep on the beach, they will eat you.
Okay.
So the Losers Club podcast, which if you haven't heard of them, we're basically the same podcast, but they have a bunch of people who are professional writers and know what they're doing. So like a better version of us. Or it'd probably be more accurate to say we're a worse version of them. They adapted they took the word to categorize Stephen King films that are based on Stephen King properties, but not a specific Stephen King story, such as all of the Children of the Corn sequels.
Okay.
The Rage, Carrie 2.
They just call them lobstrosities.
Firestarter 2.
I cannot wait for us to do Carrie 2.
Yeah. So those are lobstrosities.
That might be one we have to do like a live reaction to.
I love that movie.
Yeah, me too. Just for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah. So if you can't handle like those kinds of Stephen King movies, then this is...
You're just not going to like it.
All right, our history with A Return to Salem's Lot. I watched it, I read the book, then I watched the 2 miniseries, and then I watched this, and I had no clue what I was in for, because I had never heard of this. And the version I watched the first time was like a really grainy version on YouTube where somebody had like ripped a VHS copy.
Oh my god.
Like converted the VHS to DVD and then like ripped it onto YouTube. And the quality was terrible, but I had such a good time with it. And spoiler alert, I had a really good time with it on the rewatch. This is not a good movie, but I do love it.
You told me that we were going to review this, and I was like,
Had you seen it before?
I don't think so. I think I'd seen parts of it before. It's the one that I would catch, but then never actually sit through and watch.
Okay.
If I'm remembering right.
The vampire's a pure myth, superstition. I may be able to bring you proof that the superstition of yesterday can become the scientific reality of today.
All right, so background. This is the official sequel to Tobe Hooper's Salem's Lot from 1979. It is written and directed by Larry Cohen and co-written by James Dixon. Larry Cohen wrote Phone Booth and is credited with the story for Body Snatchers.
Body Snatchers is pretty good.
Yeah, I haven't seen it. I heard it's good. Cohen was had previously written a screenplay for the Salem's Lot miniseries, but Warner Brothers rejected it. Years later, Warner Brothers approached him to write a low-budget feature film, and his idea was to write a sequel to Salem's Lot, which they agreed to. Man. And his inspiration was the Thornton Wilder play Our Town, which is like a play about a small town, and like it like goes over like all the various people in the small town and what they do and how they're part of the town. Mm-hmm. So, you know, it kind of sounds like Salem's Lot. But he wanted to rework it as a vampire film, and that's essentially what he did. Now, it was filmed in Vermont, not Maine, in 1986, and it was screened at the Cannes Film Festival, and then it got a limited theatrical release. Its box office numbers are not published, I would imagine because they are pretty bad, but again, it had a limited theatrical release. This is definitely like one of those like cult horror movies that gains a following like post-internet age when people like, is this a thing? Is this real? Where can I get a copy of this? And here's a quote from the director. The intention was always to bring a sense of humor to the picture, and playing with the established elements of vampire movies, audiences recognize aspects of the mythology and know what they mean. With a return to Salem's Lot, I tried to revamp the vampire legend by making vampires the most persecuted race in Europe. Which, I guess depending on how you look at it, could be true.
I mean, have you ever seen those memes where people just post something as like a little guy going, I guess? Yeah.
Yeah. But it's also, it sounds like a very like, assuming that vampires were real and they really were like monsters that fed on people, kind of sounds like a very like White Lives Matter kind of.
It's my same issue with whenever you try to use a mythological creature or a monster as a allegory for a minority, it stops working once they become super dangerous. Mm-hmm. It's like, it works for X-Men sometimes, only because they live in a world where there are superheroes that don't like face the same level of persecution.
But X-Men isn't like a specific minority.
It's just in general.
Yeah.
But even if you use them as a minority status and you go, oh, we should treat everyone well, I'd go, if there was a minority race that could stop my heart by looking at me, I might go, maybe we should at least know who they are.
And that's that. Another story in the classic, infallible 3-act structure. Good enough for Aristotle, good enough for The Simpsons.
Mr. Sislak, I have a feeling there's going to be one more act to this story.
Well, I'm not hanging around for that. 4 acts.
Structure and themes, the premise. Basically, an anthropologist is invited to live among, study, and chronicle a community of vampires.
Which sounds neat.
I really like the premise.
I love the premise.
Okay, go ahead. What were you...
I just think that there are some things that like happen throughout the course of the movie where that premise sort of gets lost on me. A lot of times I feel like they don't play with the fact that he's an anthropologist that studies cultures. He's a dude returning to a small town getting laid.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes the schlockiness, the sex and the violence
overtakes like that idea.
But I mean, there are like parts of it, like the scene in the classroom where he's learning about, at least maybe not the history, but the history that they teach of their community. The scene where he's going through the historical papers, like there are elements of it.
I would have liked more of that.
Yeah, I agree. The issue is, for me, like this film is so good because it doesn't take itself
too seriously. Yeah.
And I feel like I do want more of that aspect, but then I feel like they would have been going in a direction of taking it a little more seriously, and it's a hard balance.
It is a hard balance.
And you may hear me in the course of this episode say some things about this movie that I consider a positive, whereas when we were talking about the Salem's Lot miniseries last week, I say the exact same things about that miniseries as a negative. Difference being that Tobe Hooper's miniseries takes itself super seriously.
And this is a lobstrosity.
Yeah, exactly. So I have different expectations with different types of films.
Okay.
Yeah. As I think most people do. So does this share any themes with Salem's Lot, the movie or the miniseries, aside from obviously vampires?
Being in a small town,
coming home to a idealized version of your childhood.
Yeah.
Because Ben says he was never happier than when he was in Salem's Lot as a kid with his aunt.
Yeah.
And also the main character, Joe Weber, is the main character in this movie. He spent a little time in Jerusalem's Lot with his Aunt Clara when he was a kid. So kind of that coming home theme, which is something that comes up a lot in Stephen King. See The Losers Club, Coming Home. But like, I guess
it doesn't really focus on little wee evils,
but it kind of takes the theme from the book of a small town with dark secrets, but their secret is capital E evil.
Yeah.
Turns out they're the spawn of the devil instead of they beat their baby. So it's almost like a perversion of the themes of the novel.
Yeah, it's like it flipped it.
Yeah, which is it's kind of clever, or maybe it's lazy. I don't know, but
it exists.
It's fun.
Yeah. There's a lot of fun in this movie.
Yeah.
So, what's our next bullet point here?
Okay, so does this actually work canonically?
I don't think so.
Okay, so with either the novel, the miniseries, or the short stories.
Yeah.
I mean, like, come on. I know it's officially the sequel to the miniseries, but okay, so let's just take it. Apparently, Barlow and Straker come to Salem's Lot, but apparently there were already vampires there, and they had been there since the time of the Pilgrims.
I mean, I guess if we take Chapelwaite into consideration.
Well, I think it makes more sense with the short story Jerusalem's Lot.
Yeah.
And like the community that what's his face Boone, the cult leader in Jerusalem's Lot.
With the worm.
Yeah, with the worm.
Yeah, but it could work with something like that if Salem's Lot, the book, didn't exist.
I mean, even just like the fire. Like,
yeah.
Ben and Mark set that fire. And granted, it never tells you that the whole town burned down.
Yeah, but in this movie, they talk about how, what do they call them? Drones?
Yeah.
That they breed drones. I'm like, okay, how long have you been doing that? Because those are grown adults.
Mm-hmm.
How long? You're talking about like this really long history. How would any of the vampires made in Salem's Lot know that?
I would guess that it's like generations and generations of drones. Like,
yeah, but I mean, how long did this take place after Salem's Lot to make it fit
after the novel? Well, okay, now this, I don't believe this, but I'm just trying to be devil's advocate and make this work. Let's say all the characters in the novel Salem's Lot, half of them were actually drones, and the other half of them were secretly already vampires. When Straker and Barlow arrived.
And Barlow was just coming to visit his family.
or he didn't know. It's just two groups. I'm just trying to make the puzzle pieces fit.
I think, okay, if you absolutely wanted to make it fit, I don't think the numbers could be that big. But I think you could probably do like a tenth of them might be secretly vampires.
And then the rest of them are drones that they have been breeding over generations since like.
And Barlow didn't know, and it was like a bigger wolf coming in and taking over a territory or something like that.
And what they decided to do is they saw Barlow as a threat, so they just hid the fact that they were vampires, and they let him like turn some of their drones into vampires.
Yeah.
And they waited for Barlow to die and for the fire thing to calm down, and then they reestablished the town.
Okay, if you do that specific square peg round hole thing, I think we can make it work.
And they are descended from what's his face Boone's, like
from Jerusalem's Lot.
Yeah, from the short story Andrew Boone's father. I don't remember, Charles Boone, maybe. Yeah, from his cults. Okay, Jesus Christ,
hey, we did it.
We did it. We fixed it,
Hey,
Stephen King.
Hollywood, we just proved ourselves to be better writers than your screenplay.
Yeah.
Send us a job.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Characters. So our main character is Joe Weber, played by Michael Moriarty, who has the coolest last name ever. Like, if I was just.
Are you gonna change your last name?
Maybe.
Maybe.
I've thought about changing my middle name. I don't know about last names.
I'll change mine to Holmes if you do Moriarty.
Oh, that would be so cool. The Horror of Babylon with Holmes and Moriarty. I might change mine to Watson, though. That'd be... Joe Weber, he's not going to win any Dad of the Year awards. But
I don't think he's going to win any Person of the Year.
But I found him amusing.
He was amusing from the beginning. This isn't our tribe. We're just going to sit here and watch the sacrifice. Shut the fuck up and record it.
He reminded me of like a Stephen King Han Solo, who just like takes nobody's shit and has no problem just like giving people shit in return. And also,
he's a Richard Bachman character.
Yeah, exactly. And he also just punches people in the nose over... Oh, yeah.
Don't get the camera wet.
He's kind of a shit guy, but I kind of like him a lot.
It works for this movie.
Yeah. He would not have worked as the protagonist of Salem's Lot.
Yeah, I don't think he would... Unless, like, he was the drunk. Which, I mean... He could work as, like, a character in a Stephen King book. I don't think he could work as a main character.
No, not... Maybe in a Bachman book.
Yeah.
Maybe. You kind of actually get a little bit of an arc where he, like... He kind of cares about his kid, but he doesn't really have any kind of relationship with his kid, and you actually see them...
I never signed up for being a dad.
Yeah, like, he has that, like, resigned, like, I'm going to take responsibility, but I'm not really into this kind of dad thing. But you actually see him, like, start to care for his kid throughout the course of the movie, which is more than I probably would have guessed.
You get laid tonight, son?
Yeah, I was gonna ask you at some point, you get laid tonight, Daniel? So you see a little bit of evolution with him through as the movie goes, which is I think he fits the movie perfectly. Who doesn't is his son Jeremy Weber, played by Ricky Addison Reed. Would you believe me if I told you this is his only credit on IMDb?
What? No way.
And I checked. He didn't die. He was still alive as of a couple years ago. Mm-hmm. So it's not like he did this movie and then died. He just... Maybe not. And I don't like to shit on kid actors, but he was maybe not the most talented child actor I've ever seen in my life.
Dad, I'm 14 and I'm gonna get married. To a vampire.
I mean, she's a cute little girl.
Okay, Humbert.
I said she was a cute little girl. Like, like a puppy's cute.
I think that was Humbert's mistake. He should have found Salem's Lot.
Yeah.
She's really 500 years old, officer.
I mean, if we're talking Humbert, Joe Weber was also sleeping with, like, an eternal 17-year-old.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. Whenever, because that narration's happening as they're fucking,
mm-hmm.
and he's like, I think she goes, you were 9 and I was only
you were 14 and I was 17.
And I went, but you haven't ate. Oh.
So she's been on the planet longer than 17 years, but in terms of, like, maturity, she's still 17.
I'm going to be honest, it feels like a gross loophole, but I laughed so loud.
And he's, like, early 40s, maybe late 30s.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's pretty gross. But, I mean, she is also a vampire. I don't know, like... But it's very Humbert-ish. You get... I think from now on, whenever we cover something, if anything like that happens...
It's questionable as pulling a Humbert.
Well, no. Well, I was going to say we give him the Humbert Award for grossness.
Okay.
So, Joe Weber, you get the Humbert Award for grossness.
Don't get me wrong. If I had a chance for that scene, I probably would have acted it out, too.
The 17-year-old immortal vampire, yeah. Well, it's like in Near Dark.
Yeah.
Like, that girl was in high school when she became a vampire. Yeah. So and it had been years, but she was still emotionally and physically a high school girl.
Yeah.
So.
That's so fucked up.
Yeah. Keeps coming up in all this vampire stuff. In A Dowry of Blood, too.
I can't wait till we cover Let the Right One In.
Can't wait till we cover the sequel to A Dowry of Blood.
I forgot that happened.
Well, it hasn't happened. Like, she was... Well, at least when we covered
it, it hadn't come out
yet. It
yet.
hadn't come out yet.
Okay.
I'll Google it later. Andrew Dugan played Judge Axel, who's the Barlow-esque head vampire.
I have exactly one criticism.
Okay.
Okay, monster movies.
Mm-hmm.
There's usually that money shot, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they allude to the money shot going, oh, he's actually a monster. I've seen it.
Mm-hmm.
But they already showed us.
Yeah, they show you at the beginning of the movie.
They show the big...
You don't know it's him. I mean, you probably do know it's him, but you...
Yeah, because he's the leader of the town.
Yeah.
They bring up that line, and I'm like, yeah, we saw it. Yeah, we saw it.
He ripped apart those teenagers.
And then they play it, and then they kind of play it like a reveal, and I was like, was this supposed to surprise me? I don't know, but I thought that was funny.
I love the fight scene in the barn where he's literally got like hatchets and scythes. Like,
yeah, that's actually kind of cool.
Yeah.
Because imagine you're fighting a vampire, but you're not exactly ready.
Yeah.
Like, what do? Well, you stick him with what you got.
Yeah, and it's just like hanging out of him. So this movie probably has like literally the worst stunts I've ever seen in any movie.
Is it better or worse than Barlow banging two heads together in the original Salem slot?
I think it's almost worse.
Okay. Because we just talked about that.
Like, every fall in this, you, like, see, they all, like, go to, like, land on their hands or land on their elbows. There's, like, no real, like, fake stage falling. The one that, like, made me laugh really hard, well, there were a couple, was when he punched the sheriff, or the constable. I'm sorry, constable. He punched the constable in Judge Axel's house. Do you remember that part? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then also when he drugs this kid, or Joe drugs this kid, and he has him over his shoulder, and he's running across the river, and he like slightly turns and hits the one guy in the face with the kid's feet, and the guy just falls over. Also, like the shootout scene with the drones at the end is so bad. It's so funny. The stunts are terrible.
Yeah, but I mean, they're fun to watch.
But they're funny. Yeah, they're funny as hell. Like, I've seen better stunts in, like, two guys with a camera on YouTube. Like,
I think we've done better stunts. for just fucking around.
Probably, yeah. Okay.
Maybe we just think it's better.
Favorite character, Samuel Mueller plays Van Meer. I'm not a Nazi hunter. I'm a Nazi killer.
That's what cracked me up is, okay, it wasn't enough that they're vampires. What finally drives Joe here is, oh, you mean there are also Nazis?
No, they're not, though. Yeah. Like, he was looking for a Nazi, but that Nazi wasn't there.
Didn't they mention that he saw him in town?
That was a lie to try and get him into town.
Okay, I got confused there then.
So none of them were actually Nazis. That was slander against the vampires. He just happened to be a Nazi killer looking for a Nazi.
Oh, okay. See, I thought we were doing Hellsink.
No.
I was like, oh, sweet, I get to post I have so many Nazi memes or GIFs from Hellsink.
Yeah.
So now I don't get to post them.
Because that's like, logically, you would think that it turns out that Judge Axel was the Nazi he was looking for the whole time. Yeah. But that never happens.
Okay.
So just presumably that Nazi's still out there somewhere, and maybe after they take care of all the vampires, then they go looking for that Nazi.
Now we get to find a real monster.
Which that Nazi turns out to be Ian McKellen, an apt pupil.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Canonically, I'm calling it.
Dude, we're making all of this stuff fit. Hollywood, hire us. We just made your Stephen King cinematic universe in, what, how many minutes have we been recording?
Well, that happens in apt pupil. There's an Israeli Nazi hunter. That's how it kind of gets blown out.
Yeah, but now we've connected it to previous movies.
Yeah, exactly. We can set up the Stephen King
cinematic universe.
Yeah. It'll be like my fourth favorite cinematic universe after the Nintendo one that only has one movie in it right now.
I think it's going to be a Smash one. They're going to connect it to Sonic.
I can think of worse things.
It'll just be a Batman versus Superman parody, but it's Mario and Sonic.
I could think of worse things.
I'd watch it.
And then the last character I had written down was June Havoc, who played Aunt Clara, who doesn't really...
She doesn't do... Who is the 17-year-old who got, like, super pregnant overnight?
Yeah, I thought it was kind of disappointing that we never got, like, a gruesome birth scene, like an alien-esque, like, vampire.
I was honestly expecting it the way the movie was going.
I think they ran out of money.
That would explain a lot.
Tara Reid. Amanda. That's her. Yeah, that was a character. We already talked about the immortal 17-year-old. Apparently she was also in American Pie. And The Big Lebowski and Urban Legend. Okay, apparently she's like an actress. I mean, obviously she's an actress, but
she has a career.
Yep. Is that the same The Boys?
Yes.
Okay, she's also in The Boys and The Last Sharknado, It's About Time, in Ouija House, Bus Party to Hell.
It looks like she
is in all the Sharknado movies.
She kept up with all the schlock.
The Hungover Games.
Oh my god.
And she was not Finch. Let me look at the picture. Yeah, she's this guy's girlfriend.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. I don't remember his name. There's Jim and Finch and Stifler. Oz?
The Great and Terrible.
I don't remember this kid's name.
You're welcome.
Oz the Great and Terrible.
I hate how perfectly that happened.
I don't.
That's why we don't script these.
Yep.
I'll kill you all! I'll drive you crazy, and I'll kill you all! I'm every nightmare you ever had. I am your worst dream come true. I'm everything you ever were afraid of.
Alright, scary shit. Is this movie scary?
I don't even know if I would have found this scary as a kid.
Maybe if it was like the first horror movie I ever saw as a young child.
I think the idea of getting attacked by a bunch of kid vampires would freak me out.
Yeah, that scene was bordering on creepy.
The child wedding was sort of creepy.
That was creepy. What I thought was kind of scary was the fact that the cops just like deter your car and say, "Oh, there's an accident up ahead. You can't go any further."
Mm-hmm.
And then the vampires get you. But no, it's not a scary movie. It's a fun movie. I don't know if like Hollywood would classify it as a comedy, but to me, it's horror comedy.
Even if that's not the intent, that's where we're at.
This is like what the Toxic Avenger should have been in my mind.
Yeah. This is probably closer to what the remake of the Toxic Avenger will end up being.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so. Okay, the effects, obviously all practical. Not the best effects, but still like fun enough.
Yeah.
Good enough.
I don't think there was anything that was like so like egregiously bad that I was mad about it.
Okay, so what about like Judge Axel's like vampire form?
At least it was so different that I was like, okay, it's where Barlow was just bad news for Raw 2.
Yeah.
It wasn't like groundbreaking effects, but I was like, it's different.
And it's also like expectations.
Yeah.
Like, when you're watching a schlocky movie, you expect a schlocky vampire.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, this Tobe Hooper Salem's Lot, like, it's supposed to be, like, I don't want to say highbrow, but it...
Closer to that.
Of better quality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially when he also made Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah. And Poltergeist.
Like,
literally two of the most iconic horror movies ever made.
Seeing that made me, like, retroactively raise my expectations.
Kiss me, fat boy.
Okay, so Kiss Me, Fat Boy. So those kids got married.
Another kid was trying to marry another... Okay. This is what weirds me out about it, is he is a 14-year-old boy.
Yes.
And she's trying to marry him. I'm like, how old are you really? Are you pulling a Humbert?
Yeah, like, she could be, like, hundreds of years old.
And that makes it creepy.
Or she could be 12 years old.
But at that point, does this town just let kids get married? Which would also be bad.
I think they let some number of children become vampires and stay as children forever so that they can have children in the town.
Yeah.
Aside from the drone's children. Because we saw in the beginning that the one drone had a baby.
Mm-hmm.
You can hit me if you want. I'm a drone. That's what I'm for. But
they don't like to be called drones.
So if these people are going to be in children forever, I guess you can't tell them, no, you can't get married. You're supposed to be the kid. But I mean, I don't know. I
don't think there's a good answer. Is what I'm saying. I think no matter like which way you like rationalize it, you're ending up at a bad answer.
Because like the way I've always understood it, and maybe this is different, because obviously in different media handle it differently. The impression I got from this is even if the kids are hundreds of years old, maturity-wise, they're still children.
Yeah.
As opposed to something like the little boy from Mermaid Saga, who was like 800 years old, and still maybe like maturity-wise was a kid, but intellectually he was an adult.
Mm-hmm.
There's also the kid from Near Dark. I don't know. It's gross.
I don't think it ever leads you to a good answer.
Yeah.
I think it can lead to interesting questions that if you're trying to like seriously tackle a weird issue. But I don't think this movie was.
All right, we're just dancing around it, so I'm just going to say it.
Yeah.
Do they have sex?
100%.
Okay.
100%. I don't doubt it in my mind at all. He's a 14-year-old boy, so he's already super horny.
Did you get laid, son?
Yeah, he like right out asked it. I'm like, I think it's weird, but I think that's totally how it works.
Okay. All right. That's cool. I mean, it's not.
Yeah.
That's just what I say.
Yeah.
The power of Christ compels you! The power of Christ compels you!
All right, the power of Christ compels you. What if Father Callahan decided, you know what, I feel bad, I'm going back to Salem's Lot to make this right. And he goes back to Salem's Lot and shows up in the Salem's Lot of A Return to Salem's Lot. How would he react? What would Father Callahan do? Maybe he shows up at a child wedding.
Yeah, see...
He goes back to his church, and that's what's happening.
He shows up to the child wedding, and he's like, now that's evil. And he pulls out his squirt gun filled with holy water.
I think he just, like, starts chucking Bibles like ninja stars, like in One for the Road.
That's something I was wondering about. Like, if you had, like, a Bible, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you tore a page out, not to, like, desecrate it, but to use as a weapon, and, like, you threw, like, a paper airplane at a vampire, and it got the vampire in the eye, does it kill it? Or to, like, burn it or do anything?
I think it would have some effect.
Right?
Maybe not kill it.
Like, I want to know where the lines are, and... Because imagine, like, you take a Bible and you're not desecrating it. This is to be used as a weapon. You turn it to confetti cannons.
Well, I think it would also matter, like, what book of the Bible it is, because obviously, like, pages from the book of Genesis are going to be more pure than, like...
Leviticus?
Like Leviticus, okay. Yeah, exactly. And actually, if you used... if you use the Book of Revelations, that might actually power up the vampires.
I just want to see someone use a Bible confetti cannon on a vampire.
Yeah, I want to see that too.
We need to say that for our vampire screenplay.
If you like used a bunch of pages from the Book of Revelations and then confetti cannon to vampires, and it turns out you're just like giving Mario power-ups to the vampires, and they just like grow in size.
Turn into Super Vampire, and then Super Vampire 2.
Yeah.
And this is to go even Vampire Beyond.
Oh my god, are you Stephen King? No, I'm Dean Koontz. Oh.
Kings and Koontz, what is your king for a return to Salem's Lot?
All the weird sex shit, because I find it really amusing.
My king is the premise. I did take a little bit of anthropology and sociology in college, and in a different life I could see that being something I pursued, and I think anthropology is really interesting. But to really study it, like, you can't really do that and be at home. Like, that's something you have to be, like...
willing to travel for.
Yeah, so...
and live amongst, like, entire groups of people for prolonged periods of time.
It doesn't really work with raising his family, as you see in this movie. But I really like the premise. And you're right, like, they waver on it a little bit, but like I said...
it's still a great premise.
Yeah. And then my Koontz is that... the judge didn't stake Jeremy, the son, like I thought on the stage, where he's like, I thought he should have staked him. I think it would have been better.
It definitely would have added to the schlock. Mine is also schlock related, because we didn't get a gross vampire baby birth.
Yeah, I was expecting it.
Yeah.
And then 1986. So yeah, this is post Alien. So
and I was expecting her belly to just keep getting bigger and bigger, and her to like be all creepy and like, am I still beautiful?
You can put it in my ass if you don't want to hurt the baby.
Yeah, something like that.
Ranking, I have it pretty high.
Mine's gonna be higher than expected.
It's my new number 11. It's right below Pet Sematary 2, because they're right in that same vein for me.
Okay.
I like a schlock.
Where did I have the original Pet Cemetery on here? Or not Pet Cemetery, Salem's Lot.
27.
I think this is my new number 28.
All right.
I think it's just right below there.
There you go. Return to Salem's Lot, 28. Below the OG Salem's Lot and right above Victor Frankenstein. And then for Zombie Day, just a couple quick things. Michael Moriarty, who plays the main character in this, was also in the Dead Zone TV series. Fun little thing. They just saved one little line from the book and from the miniseries where he calls the cop sheriff, and he says, just constable. Just a throwaway thing. Okay, for homework, the vampire way of using cattle as a food source in A Return to Salem's Lot is more humane and more environmentally friendly. What other aspects of vampire life are super woke?
Letting people love who they love with the child marriage.
As a liberal, I'm offended.
What's your answer?
I'm not going to play. I'm taking my toys and I'm going home. Ryan, you're the one who came up with this question. So...
what did you expect Daniel to say?
Well, okay, so first thing I want to say is that as super woke vampires, they're very concerned with not hurting anybody's feelings. So whenever they do find a victim and they're about to bite them and suck their blood, they always make sure to ask them their pronouns first.
That's not where I thought you were going, but that's pretty good. I thought they were going to ask for consent.
I feel like they just starve to death.
Yeah.
If they can I suck your blood? No. Please. No. All right, well, how about let's just cuddle instead?
No means no.
Okay, but I just want to cuddle. I don't want to suck your blood. You're going to try and make it lead to sucking my blood. Okay. Question for the listeners. What's your favorite piece of vampire schlock? Reach out to us on our socials and let us know. For further reading, I had some of my favorite lobstrosities. Pet Sematary 2, The Rage, Carrie 2, and Firestarter 2, Rekindled. Daniel, what's some good vampire schlock that you could recommend?
Vampire schlock from Dusk Till Dawn.
Yes.
Yeah.
100% yes.
I think it even leans more into the schlock, especially like once you get to the vampires.
Mm-hmm. I love that movie.
Yeah, that's a great movie. If you really like the schlock aspects of the TV series from Dusk Till Dawn too.
I haven't seen it. I've only seen the original.
It's a return to Salem slot.
Nice.
Yeah. Good vampire schlock. What's another really good one?
Interview with a Vampire.
I don't know if I'd call that schlock. It takes itself super seriously.
That was a joke.
Oh.
Near Dark.
Yeah, Near Dark. We got probably any of the Goosebump vampire episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Or Tales from the Crypt ones. The one Tales of the Crypt movie I referenced.
Yeah, with the squirt gun.
The squirt gun, Holy Water, that one's pretty funny.
Is that the title, Squirt Gun and Holy Water?
I don't remember what it was called. I think it's just called one of the Tales from the Crypt movies. Or it's Tales of the Crypt, subtitle whatever the story's name is. It's just, I know it's about vampires.
Night Flyer's a little schlocky.
Night Flyer is a little schlocky. I think it's...
kind of borders, it kind of walks the line.
It does walk the line. I think it's schlocky in a more serious way.
Yeah.
It's closer to like Quentin Tarantino than this movie is.
Yeah. Alrighty, upcoming on the Horror of Babylon, our next 2 regular Sunday episodes, we'll be wrapping up Salem's Lot coverage with next week, Sunday, August 6th, Salem's Lot 2004, which is the second miniseries from TNT. And August 13th, we are going to review some number of episodes of Chapelwaite from 2021, which is the series that adapts the short story Jerusalem's Lot, starring Adrian Brody. And then our next 2 Thursday bonus episodes on August 3rd and August 10th will be episodes 2 and 3 of the Alienathon Aliens. And I legitimately don't know. Is this movie titled Alien Cubed? Or is it Alien 3?
Alien 3.
Okay. Why is it...
Which is weird because it goes Alien,
Power.
Aliens, Alien 3. When technically it should be Alien 2 because there's only one.
But why is the 3 like the power of 3 instead of just a 3?
I think just the director thought it looked neat.
That is needlessly confusing.
When you see who the director is, you'll get it.
Hold on. Did Ridley Scott just do Prometheus and the original?
Yes.
Okay. Let me go to my watch list. Click on Alien Cubed. David Fincher, who's that?
He's one of my favorite directors.
Okay, Fight Club, The Social Network, The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. Those are the movies I've seen. I haven't seen any of these other things.
He does a lot of like artsy movies.
Yeah.
Or crime movies that take themselves like the subject matter really seriously.
Yeah. There's some big movies here that I've not seen. Seven. I've not seen Zodiac.
The biggest problem with Alien 3 is they had David Fincher and they didn't just let him do David Fincher stuff. The studio kept interfering.
I've not seen The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
It's fantastic. The book is fantastic.
I've not seen Michael Douglas Puzzlehead movie. David Andrew Leo Fincher. God, what's the matter with your parents?
They wanted him to be bullied so he would become an artist.
You need 4 names. You know what? 3 names isn't good enough for you. My daughter has 4 names.
I wasn't going to say anything.
Yeah, but it's better than Andrew Leo.
Yeah, but I thought you wanted her to be bullied so she'd become an artist.
No.
Oh.
Thank you to our patrons, Abigail the First, Breaker of Chains, Mother of Dragons, and
Logan,
the Full Metal Patron. And thank you to Horsemen Comics and Gaming, which you can visit at the Morgantown Mall in Morgantown, West Virginia, the Mall Robinson in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, or the auxiliary bridge on the Nostromo, which is really just Ron with a pile of comics waiting for the alien to eat him. Actually, Ryan, the Nostromo didn't have an auxiliary bridge. If you lost the bridge, to take control, you would have to override one of the hull consoles. That model of ship didn't have an auxiliary bridge built into it because, in fact, the company that makes the Nostromo,
Is this all true?
I have no idea. I just imagine, like, that's the kind of comment I would make on, like, a Star Wars thing. Like the Falcon. Falcon doesn't have an auxiliary bridge. It's too small of a freighter to have an auxiliary bridge. But I don't know how big the Nostromo is. I mean, like...
Medium class?
I don't know. But that if I was listening to something and somebody said, well, the cockpit of the Falcon was blown up, so they had to go to the auxiliary bridge, I'd be like, well, hold on. The Falcon doesn't have an auxiliary bridge.
You didn't do your research. Get the lore right.
All right, thank you for watching a Return to Salem's Lot and recording with me.
It was a good time.
Thank you to everyone for listening. Stay tuned for our socials and stay scary.
Stay scary, everybody.
And now for the obligatory socials. Please like, share, and subscribe. You can find the podcast on Twitter at HorrorPod69. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Slasher, and Goodreads. Become part of the Disturbed community by asking for the Facebook group and Discord links. Send dick pics to the Horror of Babylon podcast at gmail.com. Support the show at patreon.com/the Horror of Babylon. In closing, you can let your friends know that the Horror of Babylon is available on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible, and all other major podcast apps. Stay scary.